change with the market. They really are very powerful concepts that are worth working on, and they certainly do apply for incorporating operations into an existing business. Okay, so what does operations do? You need to be able to respond to any issues. There's a configuration element to operations. You need to be careful about how you manage your configurations. Business continuity. So that means that's your uptime reliability. That is, your system fails, how does it recover, and how long does it take to then build and get your system back up to where you were before. That's really what we're talking about, business continuity, and doing that systematically and identifying processes on how to go about it is a really important part of your business. Then putting those service level agreements in place with other parties and within your own support team. Proactive monitoring as well, threat monitoring. There are tools and processes that you can put in place to help you actively monitor that the system's working and behaving the way it is. If you've done the proactive monitoring right, you will know about problems before they come. So there are often signs beforehand, before big problems come into a productionized system, and that's what the proactive monitoring is to start understanding about parts of the system that are getting strained or under pressure or not used in the way that they should be. So then you can put something in place to mitigate that. And then change responsibly. That means you have change control, you have a process of testing before you go live with it, so that you're confident that you're not putting your service under risk and that it is going to deliver what it's intended. So in support, you have different levels of support. And the reason why you do that is because you've got some employees who are more skilled than others or know certain parts of the system better than others. Initially, when you're in a startup and you're small, this is one person who's doing everything. He's your techie, he understands all the different parts and how they fit together. But as your system grows, it's only natural that some people become an expert in the database, or an expert in Mojaloop, or an expert in some other aspect of your software. And when that starts to happen, then it becomes important to separate out the different roles within your organization. And this is a good map of how you can do that. So support personnel are different to engineers who build a system. The support guys are people. They understand people. They can talk to people, and they follow up, and they chase the right people, and they tend to work in a different way to how your sort of architects of your technical system are. So you often want your architects to be actioned lower down in the support stream, and the people at the top really managing the client interface. So this is how you would design a support system, a support desk. So the guys manning the desk are the people, and they will have a reference of support, and will be able to have limited access into the back-end system to be able to answer some of those questions. And they'll be taking your incidences and making sure that there's a proper execution flow through those incidences, so that they can, in fact, come to a happy outcome afterwards. Incidences that are recurring over and over again, they get then logged as problems, and then problems also go through a similar flow process. So in your operational center is really the people who understand your technical system the most, and they will they are often how should I put it? Normally you would then escalate issues into that problem system when we know that the standard issues that keep on coming up aren't one of them. So this is almost like a filter system. Otherwise, the person who understands the system the most ends up getting swamped by questions that are not really about the main system. So that's how we filter that out. And then if your operational center cannot answer the question, then they escalate it into what we call L4 support, which are the people, the sort of developer access. Now, when putting support together, something that I haven't covered in the slide, it's important to know that there's a segregation of duties that is important, and that is the people writing the software, which are your L4 support. So these are the guys, your coders who are building your system up. They should never have access to the production system. This is particularly important for financial systems, because if you're writing the software and you have control to production, then you can steal money. So that is not allowed in financial systems. We need to separate out the people who write the product from the supporting structure. Okay, so tools that you need when you're putting a support program together is you need a ticketing tool so that you can manage these issues as they come up and make sure that you get to an end solution. There are lots of ticketing tools out there, and to try and drive a support desk without one is just crazy. So use one, implement one. The other thing that's important to know about is a defect triage escalation flowchart. That means some issues are really important and involve everyone putting down their tools, like your whole office, and fixing it. Because it needs to become your number one priority. But you can't do that with every issue that comes up. So how do you escalate it? When do you make it a level 1 priority issue? And the way you do that is you have a defect triage tool, a little bit how hospitals do that. They need to determine which patients are the most sick so that they can give them the urgent care. And they're not going to give that to everyone. They're going to give it to patients who need it. So in a similar way, support desks need to be doing that. And then we've got problem management that happens when you get recurring incidences, and you've got to work out how to solve them. And then you need an alert mechanism for high-level priority issues. So just at a high level, this is how to start thinking about operations in your system, and hopefully you guys will build a big enough organization where this becomes something really important that you need to work on. So things I haven't mentioned is security, incident management. Yeah, I'm actually not going to talk much about it, except it is a thing. And there are specialist tools and people in place that can help you do that. And underneath all of this, and which is relevant to PISP and what we're doing, is where we store our secrets, our keys. Because in the Mojo Loop system, the security is all based on these keys. So where you store them, who's got access to them, when do they expire, and how are they reissued, are things you need to know. And you've got to make sure you own your own keys. So you've got to know where they are and who's got access to them. So this It's not meant to scare you, but it might. So this is what a full a full hub productionized support offering would look like. And the reason why I'm laying it out like this, just so that you get a sense of how much needs to be done. But in practice, you don't need one person for each one of these blocks. In a big organization, they'll have teams for each one of these blocks. But in practice, you often get one or two really good people when you're starting out and you're small, and they do all of this stuff. And I don't know how they do it, or it's quite a lot of work to do, but they manage it. And then as you grow, that one person becomes two, which becomes a smaller team, and like that you scale it out. But what's nice about this is a functional view of all the things that need to happen if you're trying to put a support program together. So the top box, what we got is really your call center, where you're taking in, or sometimes it's not calls, sometimes it's through submitting issues online, but you really, that's your first line of logging an issue into a support system. And there we've got a knowledge base on typical things that have gone wrong and how to overcome them, and so there will be an aspect of that. So we've got a knowledge base, we got the Mojo Loop training program, the community forum. So we sort of have a first level service where you probably might not even need to access the support desk. And then you've got a support desk, and then they can do certain level standard monitoring, and they can do level 2 support as well, and can help manage people through an onboarding process. Then in the middle here we've got our operational center, and they will do infrastructure support, application support. So if people complain that certain aspects of your software are not running, they can go in and check them out and then log issues and triage it. Implementation of changes. Sometimes you just need to change to keep up to date, to make sure that you don't have security vulnerabilities. So that needs to happen. Platform resilience, testing around that, and also implementing those processes when parts of the system go down. Platform performance, so a way of understanding and validating the performance of the system, so that when parts of the system start to slow, you know about them beforehand. Capacity reports. Maybe I shouldn't go through all of this, but access control changes need to be managed by this office. Threat monitoring and threat management, also important aspects. And then they can escalate to your L4. So this middle section's pretty much what we've been talking about beforehand. But then there is this other aspect here, which needs to sit independent to your main service support desk, which sits in the middle. And that is because we also have a segregation of duties, where the compliance people, or the people who are deciding what, who are setting the parameters by which the operational center function to, they can't be working for the same team. They need to be working for a different team. In a small organization, this is your CEO. In bigger organizations, this becomes, you have a compliance officer who then makes sure that the right levels and securities and parameters are in place and are being met. And they will have reports and checks into the operational center to make sure that they are meeting those. So the sort of things we're talking about is compliance, reporting, control over where the secrets are and who's got access to them, threat management, change control approvals, and architectural review approvals and threat monitoring. So those are yeah, there's a compliance aspect and a security aspect that fall in this arm. And similarly, on the other side, we've got our service management. If you've got lots of clients, or you've got other, they might be your customers, or they might be other business organizations that you're connecting to, you would have a manager managing that relationship with you, and then you'll be getting out reports about the health of the system and the service that you're offering them, and you're probably going to have regular meetings with them. So, and you will have some service level agreements with those people that you're providing the service to, and you'll be checking to see whether you are meeting those service level agreements, and so providing the right level of service to that organization or person. And then of course you need your release manager and your quality assurance manager. Okay, so that's the whole picture. Are there any questions?
Okay, you talked about adopting tools when you're getting started with the Agile model, but are there any kind of special tools that I need to adopt? I'm assuming I'm using a cloud service provider or a private data center to host this switch. Now, are there any special kind of hardware? Okay, besides the ticketing tool that you talked about, are there any special kinds of hardware or softwares that are even commercial that I need to adopt in order to host this switch?
Do you mean specifically for modular loop, or so to the specific hardware you need to run modular loop?
Specifically for modular loop.
Okay. There is a lot of specific hardware that you need to be able to run modular loop. Well, when we say specific hardware, modular loop actually doesn't define what that hardware is. So modular loop is deployed. Remember, on your machine you've got Docker Compose, which are running these container D images, and then we've got Kubernetes, Helm deployment scripts that enable you to configure Kubernetes to be able to run that whole mechanism. None of that actually specifies your hardware. So what's nice about the modular loop system is it's built on a hardware agnostics platform. So when you're talking about actual hardware, there's lots of ways of doing it. You can host it in any managed Kubernetes cloud environment. Amazon have got one, Google Cloud's got one, Azure's got one, and you might find that there's local companies that also provide it. So anyone who's got a managed Kubernetes cloud platform, you can deploy modular loop in there. If you don't want to use a managed Kubernetes environment, you can deploy your own Kubernetes environment onto virtual machines that are hosted by other cloud platforms, or local cloud platforms, or you can run bare metal, which is an on-prem solution for Kubernetes. So yes, you need Kubernetes, but exactly how that fits together is not defined by modular loop. When you're putting a productionized, highly resilient system with no single point of failure together, there's even more you need to think about. So you can't just think about the hardware that it's running on. You've got to think about how many different redundant systems am I running in different locations. So normally the rule is you've got to have 3 different server environments that are physically in different places. And then how do you update the data between them? How do you configure the systems? And then all of the applications that you deploy need to be able to work in those 3 different zones, or need to have similar levels of redundancy. So one of the easiest ways to get there is to use managed service providers, because they give a lot of these things for you. But sometimes through regulation or through necessity in the solution you're providing, you can't do that, and then you've got to do it on-prem, or you've got to use your own hardware and software. So how you go about that it's not really defined by Moduloop, but certainly something that you need to think about. The reason why it's not defined by Moduloop is because they can't. They don't understand your situation specifically, and they can't design an exact hardware solution for your space. So productionized Moduloop implementations with no single point of failure and fully redundant and like a 2 or 3 second availability time. In other words, if parts go down, then they restore and come up. I mean, that requires a specialist who can design it for your requirements in the environment that you need. So there's no shortcuts, and it'll be very different if you take exactly that same, let's say you get one designed up and it suits your needs, and then you try and apply it to someone else. There's a good chance they will need something different, because they want to use it in a different way, or because of the cost constraints they need a different style of database, or they're happier with reduced availability. So if, for example, if you're happy with the system going down for 15 minutes and then taking that long to come back up, it means you don't have to have online redundant systems. You've got to make sure you don't lose any data, but you can have a sort of a reboot mechanism that can happen in 15 minutes. So it changes your whole design and approach. And people, this is something guys build careers on. So it's not a small task, and needs to be done properly and seriously, because there's people's money at stake. It's not just their money, because they won't lose money, but being able to pay means people are allowed to use their own money. So what happens if your system's broken and a person needs to admit somebody urgently into hospital, and they need to make a payment, and they can't because their money's tied up in your system and it's not working. So making payments reliably does affect people's lives. So if you are taking this on, you need to understand where your risks are and the level of availability that you provide, and you need to make sure that you provide a service and meet those requirements through the technical hardware design that you put together. Are there other questions?
My question is, when an L1 service fails to resolve a solution within a time frame, is it revoked, or one has to wait until it responds, or it goes automatically to an L2 platform?
So you're saying if a level 1 support issue hasn't been resolved, does it automatically go to a level 2? Normally a level 1 issue gets logged and somebody has a look at it, one of your support guys, and the first thing they do is they run through on the defect triage process and apply it to the issue. And the reason why they're doing it is they're trying to work out whether it's a level 1 support issue or it's a level 2, or and then they can put together a plan on how to deal with it. And so it won't. It depends on the process flow and how you set it up as to whether it automatically escalates. It doesn't have to. If you've got someone looking at it, they can manually do the escalation. And your alert mechanisms, if you have a problem that your support staff aren't responding to issues, you can have alert mechanisms around that. So it's really up to you. So when you're putting the organization together and you're deciding on that defect triage escalation flow and how much of it's automated, how much of it is manual, the tools nowadays, even the most basic one, have got all the features in it. So if you've got a ticketing tool, all of the ones I've seen have ways that you can automatically escalate and then trigger off alerts and notify people. So that's the nice thing about modern day software now, is you get pretty much all of that, and it's really, if you're running an operational support desk, it's up to you to make sure that those flows are in fact applicable for your business, and you get the right escalation at the right time. But it's the right question to ask. No, how does that escalation happen? It is important. Are there any other questions? Okay, I think we're a little early, which is much better than last week where we were always late. Okay. Let's just, yep. Oh, I do have 2 more slides. I completely forgot about it. Okay, so we got, how do operations affect a PISP business? And I've got one, it's actually only 1 slide. The operational requirements for a DFSP are significantly more than a PISP. I think I need to be clear about that up front. And that's because you don't have accounts. And so you're not tying up people's money. What you are doing is providing a safer, easier way that they can make payments using your software rather than through traditional systems. But those traditional systems are still there. But as a PISP and as your business offering, you want people to use the system. And if your system stops functioning and people stop being happy with it, then they'll stop using it and use other means. So that side of your business, it becomes important. So you're providing a service that is more convenient than other payment methods. There's a trust relationship that you need to nurture, and there's 2 trust relationships. So as the PISP FinTech, you've got a trust relationship with your customer that you need to nurture. And that means that your system needs to be working, and they need to believe that it is better than the traditional payment methods. And if it is, then they'll use your system. If it isn't, then they probably won't. So for you to stay in business and to continue with your service, you've got to maintain that trust relationship. And to do that, you've got to ensure uptime reliability and make sure that you manage your risk and mitigation. And similarly, you've got a trust relationship with the payer DFSP, for whom you've got ability to make payments from on behalf of the payer. If they don't trust you, they will block you so that you can't initiate payments, because they can, because they know who it is before they agree to proceed. So so you got to make sure that this trust relationship happens and maintain it, and that's all around the secrets, you know. making sure that that when you say this is payer, that it is that payer. So really the PISP is about maintaining both of those trust relationships, and all of the other things that we spoke about apply because of that. So but specifically these that are pointed out. So incident management, threat management, threat monitoring, threat management, making sure that there's no compromises on your security, and then who's got access to my secrets and when do they expire and how they're reissued are important concepts that you need to have built into your system. Any questions about that? Okay. Great. I think we're done. So I'm going to hand over back to Charlotte. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Did we understand everything? Because no questions means you either understood or you didn't understand anything. Did we understand? Yeah? Who can give me a summary of what he was talking about? Who? Why not you? Are we good? Yeah? Any questions? What is hard? The integrations? Remember, you have to add this in your solutions. Okay, we are going to have a mentor next, but let me see. At 2, we are having a mentor, so we are going to have 1 minute for stretching. Ivan is going to help us again. Then after that, 1 minute, I think we can have a team or 2 or 3 as we wait for our mentor. So Ivan, come and stretch us, help us stretch. Hurry, hurry. Let me see which team is next. Financial education, you're the ones next after Ivan's exercise.